Hello and welcome to Ask Lovecraft After Dark. We have a very special episode today. We are going to be talking with the Callahans. Brian and Gwen are the mad geniuses behind Arkham Bazaar, as well as the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival and Cthulhucon in Portland. I'm going to be talking to them for this rather timely episode because they are currently in the process of kickstarting their next con, which is going to be this October. This is the Tiki Festival. I'm very excited to see how this one goes. And it's already been fully funded. It's good to go. They're now just sucking up all them sweet stretch goals, and we're excited to see how that goes. I got to know Brian and Gwen, I want to say, probably through Necronomicon, and just generally being aware of their work with Arkham Bazaar. And then when was it? I want to say in the spring of 2015, they invited me to come out and be a part of Cthulhucon in Portland. And that was an absolute blast. That was I think my first non Necronomicon con, and my first chance to go out to Portland, to the West Coast, or at least the Northwest Coast, and it was an absolute blast. I've written about that experience before. I talked about it on our episode with Ken Haidt, how that was a really important convention for making me feel like I had graduated. I is how I think my wife phrased it best. But prior to that con, I was always sort of making excuses for what Ask Lovecraft was, and I was kind of apologizing, be like, "Oh, here's this kind of dumb little internet show." And even after I'd been to Necronomicon, even after I'd done my my live friend show, for whatever reason, I still was feeling kind of like, oh, I need to make excuses for this or caveats for this, completely going against everything my high school drama teacher told us about never apologizing, never making any kind of caveat, just owning what you do and running right forward. But whatever all that kind of weird baggage I had, when I got to CthulhuCon, when I got to meet folks like Leslie Klinger and talk with game designers and writers and artists that I'd really admired for a long time, and got to feel like an equal, like a colleague, like someone who was also creating good art and was also making something that people were interested in. That was a really eye-opening moment. I think it's an important one that artists need to come to, where you actually value your work. We all, I think we all come to our artistic work with a bit of ego, with a bit of like, I've got something that people want to hear about or people want to see. But it's very easy to begin to feel defensive about it, or feel like you need to explain it away in some way. And it's so important for artists to begin to realize, no, the work you do is good, it's valuable, it needs to be treated seriously. If you view it seriously, it needs to be treated seriously. And CthulhuCon really helped shape me in that direction, and push me in that direction to be a more mature artist, to be someone who took my art more seriously, took myself more seriously as an artist. Not too seriously. Anyone who's watched the show knows that I will never take myself too seriously. But that was a lot of fun. So for that, I'm trying to think back now. That was also the convention where I discovered Voodoo Donuts, which was a very important discovery. And I don't know. It was a lot of fun. It was it was a great time. And here we go. I've got they are there. I've summoned them now. So everyone, please welcome Brian and Gwen.
Hey, Lehman.
Hi.
So am I correct? Did we meet at Necronomicon, or sort of begin becoming aware of each other at Necronomicon? Why on earth did you invite me out to Cthulhucon? I guess is the real question.
I think we had heard about Ask Lovecraft, and then I don't remember the exact sequence of events, but I think we saw you at Necronomicon outside the gaming area of one of the hotels, and we were like, hey, that's that guy the Ask Lovecraft guy. We're like, hi.
Oh, that's right. And we had also, I think, just the previous year at the festival, shown a short film by Thomas Nickel where he included a little bit where you had done a little segment for him.
It was the
Oh,
apology.
yes, the parody of the horrible BP explosion.
I think so, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it was based on when the CEO came out and did the like, we're so sorry for having dumped gallons and billions of gallons of petrol. Yeah, that's my very first IMDb credit was the HP apology. That's right. I remember that being featured. I think Leslie Harker did some artwork, including me, that was featured in one of the festivals. But let's get into that. So how long have you guys been doing the festival scene?
Well, we've been directing the festival, the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, since 2011. The last one, so it started in '95. So this will be the 23rd festival. But the founder, Andrew Migliori, in 2010, essentially decided that he had a young son and a wife in need, and they never got to see him. So he decided to hand over the reins to us to keep it rolling. And he still helps us. He's he still acts in sort of as an executive producer of the festival, but we run all the day-to-day stuff. Yeah,
we like to get his input on things because he started it, and we always kind of want to check and make sure that we're staying true to the founding principles of the festival.
So this will be our 7th, I think, H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival.
8.
And did you come into it as fans? Did you come into it as organizers, as sort of business people? What was kind of your main sort of thoroughfare into it?
Well, our core business is making T-shirts, psychographics, and Arkham Bazaar. And my brother, at the time we lived in New Orleans in 2002 when we started our company. And my brother lived in Portland for probably 8 or 9 years at that point, and sent us a flyer saying, hey, there's this H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival here. I think you guys would enjoy. You guys should come up and see if you can sell your T-shirts. So we contacted Andrew, and after many missed messages, finally got in touch with him. It was a very casual affair back then. He was like, yeah, just show up at, I don't know. I think he said, show up on Friday. And we were like, okay, what time and where? And like,
it was a little strange for us, because we were flying across the country, so we were coming to vend, and it was one of these like, well, how much are vending tables? And he sort of said, well, like, I could charge you for a table, but like, you guys make T-shirts, right? Could you just make me a bunch of festival T-shirts?
Yeah.
And like, and so we did that, but it was kind of a leap of faith. We didn't know him yet.
Right.
So it was like, well, we're going to make these T-shirts, which sort of in aggregate are more valuable than what you would pay for like a vendor space. But we'll get an ad in the program and stuff like that. And so we sort of just went, well, I guess we'll see what happens. So we flew up to Portland and stayed with her brother, and we showed up on Friday, and everything worked out fine.
Yeah, and once we got there, we were like, oh, okay, I understand, because it's in the theater lobby. It was very, there was maybe 10 of us setting up in this cold, damp theater lobby with no lighting. And we had been used to doing smaller and bigger shows that are more of a convention style format. So, you go in the convention center, the convention organizers send you an email saying, hey, okay, load-in is this time to this time. There's a loading dock around back. You need to park here. Go here to get your badges. So this was like a complete departure from any sort of thing that we were familiar with. So until we got to the theater and started setting up, we were just kind of like, I don't know, what is this going to be like? We had no idea. Like, we're here in Portland now, get to visit my brother, and maybe we'll see some movies, and okay, try it out.
And it blew us away right away, though. I mean, it was such a family style gathering, but also just as vendors, we found an audience that was very hungry for the kinds of stuff that we'd been making. And at the time we had maybe not even 20 designs, probably.
Like 12, I think.
Yeah.
We had enough to put on a 6-foot table. That was
just
sort of
great. Spread out.
That was great. We actually found a picture, an old photo, and I think if you go into the Arkham Bazaar Kickstarter for the reboot of the Cthulhucon T-shirt. I think there's some pictures of us in there from our very first
from 2002. But it was a blast. And just we found a new family, both in the people that ran the fest, and in the audience members that came to it. And so when we were in New Orleans through Hurricane Katrina, we were actually lived there longer afterwards than before, but it was sort of right in the middle of our time. And when we decided a few years after Katrina that New Orleans was no longer a home for us, it was obvious that this was the place to come. And we had, of the other vendors that we had come to know well, are some of our closest friends now. Andrew, who ran the fest, is one of our closest friends, and a lot of audience members are too. And it provided a really comfortable place to land after what had been a very traumatic time. And as soon as we got here, we pretty much picked up the reins and started going with the festivals.
Yep.
Well, and how have you seen it, I guess, evolve over your 16 years of involvement? Is it one of these things that you can kind of see it kind of ratcheting up year by year, or does it kind of come and go in waves? What have been some of the major changes you've witnessed?
I think that, one thing that hasn't changed is that the focus has always been and probably always will be on the short films. Our audience just can't get enough of the short films. If we had nothing but short films, then people would still come and they would have a blast. Me, myself, I need a little break from all that. We like variety. So I think when we took it over, we kind of wanted to keep the theaters for films. And Andrew had been doing on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon in one of the upstairs theaters, the literary panels and the author readings. And by the time we took it over, the theater had been being renovated. They were repainting everything. They were fixing the bathrooms and they had put new seats in. So the rent went up a little bit, and but things improved. The rent went up, and so we're paying a premium for this theater. Maybe we should just show films in the theaters and find another venue for the panels and the author readings and things like that, and maybe some more space. We can have some gaming in there.
So we sort of expanded. So there's you got to see it, I think, when you were here. The what we call the EOD Center, the Esoteric Order of Dagon Center, known to the locals by its front as the Hollywood Senior Center. But of course, more nefarious things happen when we get in there. But we, in addition to doing the author readings and panels that had already been going on over in this secondary space, we also decided that we wanted to have more. There's more kinds of creators than just writers and filmmakers. So we started our Pigman's Apprentice competition, which is a 90-minute live drawing competition where we get Lovecraftian artists together to do, we sort of pick topics out of a hat, and they have to sort of just come up with an idea and roll with it. And
it's kind of an iron artist, so we pick a monster and a location, and maybe sometimes an action. We try to change it up a little bit each year.
Yeah.
But then each of the artists kind of does their own version of that, and then the audience decides who did it the best. And then we silent auction those pieces off for charity.
Yeah. And then we also like to have some musical components as well. And it's one of the things we're super excited about this year is we've got this amazing Lovecraftian themed Japanese all-girl idol band coming from Japan to perform for us. They're called Necronomidol. Necronomidol. Something like that.
I would say, if you say Necronomidol, that sounds like something that kind of helps you with vomiting, but I think I think I get the idea. Well, tell us more about.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. Is that us?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if you can hear us. You have frozen for us. Are we still on? Here, open the chat window.
You type in there. Type in there.
Oh no. Well, we should probably
To
Oh,
Oh,
There you
here
go.
we go.
okay.
Oh, apparently, am I audible now? Apparently, something went down.
Yeah,
You're frozen.
you sort of froze and went quiet for.
Oh dear. Okay, there we go. Sorry. All right, I was vamping to nobody. Okay, good to know. I think before my end began to go wild. I was asking how this particular theme of the Tiki show, came up, and what's been the sort of the challenges and the excitements of your current Kickstarter campaign, which is never as stressful to do.
Well, every year we try to have a different theme, sort of to wrap. We haven't. I don't know if anybody has ever looked and tried to put all the pieces together, but we have an ongoing narrative from the first Kickstarter we ran to this Kickstarter involving a lodge of cultists, and it's an ongoing story that we've kind of woven through these different periods of history and locations. So 2 years ago we had the Shanghai tunnels theme, and so everything involved uncovering secrets in Portland Shanghai tunnels. And I think back in 2015, the last time you were with us, it was a trip to Rillier, where the Lodge of Cultists and a group of
Explorers.
Miskatonic-based explorers converged on the island of Rillier on one of its many exposures to the air. It's when it came up to breathe, and that was the case. If you were following the thing, it was a thing that required breathing. And so, but this year, honestly, at the end of the last festival, we were like, well,
We felt tapped out.
What do we do now? Where do we go? And Gwen had tossed around the idea of going back to the East Coast. Like, we should go back and do something, in Innsmouth or Kingsport or something like that. Try to explore one of those pieces of Lovecraft country. And then right at the tail end of the festival on Sunday night, as people were leaving, one of our regular backers and regular audience member leaned over to me and said, next year you should do a tiki theme. I don't know. That sounds kind of dumb, but I'll think about it. But then we thought, well, Captain Oban Marsh, coming from the South Seas and the rum trade and all of this, if he comes to Innsmouth and brings all this culture with him from this other part of the world, it's not unreasonable that there could be a little bit of tiki culture in there. So that's how we decided to approach it. And our tiki-themed VIP party this year is a night in Yanathle, which Gwen insists on calling the fish under the sea dance.
Oh, well done. Well done.
So we have one of our longtime collaborators, Michael Gallagher, who is the man behind the Dreams in the Witch House Lovecraftian rock opera, has put together a musical package for us under the name of the Wallachiyas, which was the famous Chief Wallachia. And he's going to perform at the VIP party a set of Lovecraftian classical Hawaiian tunes with a Lovecraftian twist.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And the fun part about that is his counterpart, which I think he's playing the keyboards, is Stephen Constantino, who better known as the Gamorrean guard that gets thrown into the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi. He will be there with us Thursday and Friday.
Interesting story. His primary thing is being a musician. He was a musician on the set of Return of the Jedi. And but when they play their music and they're doing their thing, that's pretty compartmentalized. And so he had a lot of downtime, and I think he said to somebody, "Hey, if you need anything, let me know." And at some point they said,
"Here, put this on."
Yeah, put this on and stand there. And he ended up the famous sacrificed Imperial Guard there. Yeah, which is cool. To digest for 1,000 years.
So as we mentioned, you guys are in the bowels. Speaking of being digested for 1,000 years, you're in the bowels of this current Kickstarter campaign. You've got 6 days to go as of recording. You have done Kickstarter for how many of these now? About 5 or 6?
this is our 6th campaign. Because after putting on the first one, we didn't understand going into it the scope and magnitude and length and breadth of what it takes to put this thing on. So
Well, that's why I was going to ask why you hate yourself so much that you keep coming back to this poison well again and again and again.
masochist, I guess.
Well, the first, so we did sort of back when we started, 2011, we did a very small 2-night event. It wasn't very costly from a rental standpoint, and there wasn't a lot of other expenses.
Mm-hmm.
But when we came and we did the first full festival in the spring of 2012, we really started to discover like all the things that you would never guess that are expenses. I mean, we know, of course, you've got to rent the theater, you've got to license any films you're going to play, and then profit.
No, and then there's things like you have to get badges or wristbands for people who are coming out 3 days, and then there's signage and programs and postcards and flyers to promote the event, and
lodging
advertising,
for guests,
lodging for the guests that you're flying in, your guest of honor, airfare,
Making your own custom newspapers.
right?
Yeah.
Premium snacks, renting the senior center,
PA
renting
systems
a
for
PA
panels.
system, renting extra tables and chairs.
I mean, it's an endless litany of things, which
it's a lot.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's too much. Well, and this is, I mean, I think there's a certain amount of press, earned or otherwise, that kind of small independent cons get, right? I'm a huge fan of the book Bimbos of the Death Sun and Zombies of the Gene Pool, or Nick Mamatas's I Providence, but they do not paint small intimate conventions in good light, because I think the organization often becomes so overwhelming for people who view it as a labor of love. You guys put on an amazing hell of a show. I don't know if you're just like, absorbing all the negativity and like badness, but like you guys managed to pull off this amazing show when that's not always the sort of the standard outcome.
Well, I'm a witch, and
there we go. Okay. So, next question.
I have acquired many, many, many solid minions. Really, all the credit goes to our volunteers in terms of what people see at the show. Like that couldn't happen without the volunteers. Like there are boots on the ground, our team that help me make sure that, Ken Height has water, or Scott Glancy has a bottle of scotch for his breakout session. And so, the vendors know which table they're setting up at, and making sure there's donuts and bagels and coffee made and things like that.
If we had to do it all ourselves, it would be,
we wouldn't be able to.
We wouldn't be able to, or it would be a much smaller, very poorly organized affair. As it is, we really rely heavily on the labor of volunteers, who we've come to love like family over the past few years.
Well, I imagine you instill loyalty by shoving one down the sarlacc and the rest to get the picture.
Well, they all understood what they were getting into. There are yearly sacrifices that have to be made.
But for some reason, I don't know if it's just they're awesome people. They keep coming back every year, and they're getting better and better, and they keep bringing friends with them, which is great.
Yeah.
They recruit for me. It's frozen again.
Oh, did it?
It's frozen again, yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't know if anybody out there in Google Hangout land can still hear us or not. I don't see anybody.
I don't know if it's
on
us or if
chat.
it's him.
Oh, no. Well, here, close.
Oops, where is it?
What are you looking for? Okay. Oh, no. Do you have him on Messenger there? Maybe you want to, he looks like he's logged in. Maybe you want to pop him a message.
Well, hopefully he's just talking.
Is that us, do you suppose? Oh. He's restarting.
Okay.
All right. So obviously, some dark elder beings don't want me saying how much I love your guys' convention. So this is proof of the sort of nefarious powers you guys have made bargains with.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
So someone in the chat mentioned that you guys did sort of a bonus film festival in Providence this year. Tell me about how that got started, and whether or not the folks at Necronomicon were like shaking their fist at you, chomping their flavor.
No.
They are the reason why we were in Providence.
Niels and them are such amazing people.
Yes,
they really are. And Niels had wanted there to be a Lovecraftian event for the Lovecraft's birthday weekend around August 20th, every year. But he did not probably smartly want to organize his own event every year. Necronomicon was enough of a trial, I think, that they felt that it was suitable that it should stay biennial. So he hatched a plan along with ourselves and Andrew Migliori to bring the film festival out there on every even-numbered year. So Necronomicon will be on odd-numbered years. We'll be out there on even-numbered years showing movies. And even when it's not an H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, we'll be at Necronomicon also showing movies.
But a smaller amount.
A smaller number of films, yeah, in a smaller space, as sort of as an adjunct to Necronomicon. Whereas in the even-numbered years, we have a full-fledged film festival with multiple shorts, blocks, and features that we do there that we're pretty much committed to doing every even-numbered year. So this year was just the second one. But we'll be back in 2020. Oh my God, we're back in 2020 when the stars next align to bring our special kind of madness back. Woohoo! Yeah.
But this isn't your first sort of bonus con, because again, Cthulhucon was the first one that I came out for. And you guys did two cons that year. You did Cthulhucon in the spring and then the film festival in the fall. What was kind of your thought for breaking them up like that?
That was we were switching the dates. So when we originally started doing the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, when we originally started organizing it, it was, we were doing it in the spring, whereas before it had been in October always. But we had a lot of feedback telling us, no, it has to be in October. It has to, guys, please move it back. Move it back to October. We'll kill your entire family. Move back to October. We're going to bomb the Hollywood Theater. It got fairly urgent. At the time, we were doing it in the spring because we had a number of autumn conventions that we attended as t-shirt vendors, like Dragon Con in Atlanta and Gen Con in August in Indianapolis. And since then, we've whittled those shows sort of away. So back in 2015 was the first time we wanted to move it. We moved it back to October, but that left an 18-month gap between the spring 2014 show and the October 2015 show. So we wanted to do something in the middle. So we did a couple things. We had a special night of film with Richard Stanley at the Hollywood Theater, where we showed his Otherworld documentary, as well as David Gregory's Lost Soul. It's David Gregory, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is about the making of the Island of Dr. Moreau. That was originally a Richard Stanley project until it was wrested away from him and given to a sort of an uncaring universe of a studio and director. And then shortly after, so that was in March, and then in April we did Cthulhucon PDX, which right now was the only one of its kind. Mm-hmm. Where we decided we'd still have some film, but instead of it being a film festival, we do much more of a convention-style event. So we used the Crown Plaza, sort of by the river there in Portland. And, we had a full vendor's room on like even floors with tables that were all the same size. This will make sense to people that have been to the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, where nothing is even and nothing is the same size. The floors undulate with, eldritch forces. But it was neat. It was a really interesting learning experience. We had a full-on gallery of Lovecraftian art.
Right, we had an art show.
We had an art show. We had musical performances. We had some short film programming, but it was mostly panels, scholarly panels and discussions, and cool live events, including Ask Lovecraft. And I hear it was wonderful because
like a whole room for gaming where they could be as loud as they wanted to.
That's always very important, especially if Scott is doing the GMing.
Right,
yes.
yeah.
And
but it was also sort of a proof of concept because we were considering separating the Cthulhucon part from the film festival and just having 2 events. And I think that maybe could work, but I feel like it just works better together.
To maybe have one large event versus 2 smaller events. Yeah. That was an event that I was not there for, which was it was not planned. It was the curse of the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, which affects the internal organs of male members who help organize it.
Oh dear.
Yeah, back in 2009.
Yeah, I think it was 2009. Andrew had appendicitis a week before the festival and had to go into the hospital, have it removed. And apparently, did it almost match the world record for longest appendix? The thing was like... It
was epically large. It was like 11 inches or something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You don't want to win world records when you're going into surgery. That's a rule of thumb I tend to go by.
Appendage and inside of your freakish noodly appendage inside of his gut. And then 2 or 3 years later, during Zompire, Scott Glancy had his appendix out.
Right, and could not attend. He was part of the programming.
And he was supposed to give a talk on zombie apocalypse preparedness and survival tips, which didn't happen. So if the zombie apocalypse hits and we're not ready, it's all his fault.
There we go.
And
then that year at Cthulhucon, I had some internal organ issues that took me away from the show as well. So
yes,
it was an interesting time.
Yeah, but yeah, that was amusing at the same time because Brian was jacked up on morphine.
Yes,
that makes for some amusing Facebook posting.
It does. Sure. It was good to know that the autocorrect on my phone, however, no matter how poorly I mangled it, when I typed in NE, knew that I wanted to say Necronomicon. Because it's just
pretty uncanny.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Not that you had a horrible experience, but just that you guys still managed, even with all of that, to pull it off. Because again, like I said, that was my first time coming out, first time being in a kind of a con quite like that. And I mean, it was running as smoothly as possible from where I was, from like literally getting on the airport shuttle and getting a lecture from Leslie Klinger about how copyright works with the works of Arthur Conan Doyle, to drinks with Ken Hite and Robin Laws and my breakout session that you guys organized. I mean, it was like being welcomed into a family of strangers, just everyone was so warm, so inviting. And I think your ability to curate that feeling of belonging, when the world of Lovecraftiana can often be very spiky and there's a lot of territories and a lot of, 50-year-old beefs that are still getting played out. I think it's really amazing what you guys have managed to put together out there in Portland. And I'm so pleased to see you guys moving into Providence. I'm excited for what comes next. Tell me, what comes next? Do you guys have your kind of like 10-year plan, or are you guys just sort of making this up as you go?
I think making it up as we go.
There are things
goals,
that we've talked about. So there is sort of a plan. But they're very hard things to do. Our plan not to franchise the film festival to the point that it's in every city, but we do have a lot of great connections in cities like New Orleans and Chicago, Chicago, you've got people like Ken Hite and Robin Laws, Reber Clark, the composer, Robert Capoletto, the filmmaker who made Pickman's Muse, as well as Ex Oblivion, which is on one of our classics DVDs, are all out there in that part of the country. So we have talked fairly seriously about doing little sort of bi-yearly or tri-yearly shoots in the direction of Chicago or perhaps New Orleans, to service the sort of upper part of the country and the lower part of the country. Not necessarily regular events, but we have our eyes sort of on having these one-off or two-off events kind of as the years go by.
Right. And that's sort of contingent upon any of the theaters in New Orleans actually calling us back.
Yeah, so if you're listening and you own a theater in New Orleans, you got our number. These are digits. But beyond that, we also, in addition to the Lovecraft Film Festival, 3 years ago, we started the Portland Horror Film Festival, which came to us as being a necessary evil. I mean, in a good way, because a lot of the submissions we get for the HP Lovecraft Film Festival just aren't right, and which is a very hard thing to tell, and it's a big part of our selection processes. Is this a Lovecraftian film at all? But we were seeing a number of really great horror films in general that just didn't quite have that cosmic something that we need. And we were seeing that both at the Lovecraft Film Festival and at Zompire, the Undead Film Festival, which we also organized at the time. So to give those films a place, we started Portland Horror Film Festival. So we now do that in June of every year. So we do that in June, and the Lovecraft Film Festival in October. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. As you know, we've got 2 local festivals, but then we're definitely looking to reach periodically into the Midwest and the South, to give the folks up there and down there a chance to see some of our awesome movies. Yeah, because it really is a thing that once it gets in your brain, it's a kind of brain worm, that you can't really shake. And until you've sat in a dark theater with a bunch of Lovecraft fans watching these sorts of films, I think it's really difficult to describe the experience. But it's an experience that has made lifelong fans. We have at least 2 attendees that come every year that have been to every HP Lovecraft Film Festival since its inception in 1995. And that's
incredible.
That's incredible. Anyway, I think so. That's primarily, I think, how we kind of view what we're doing now. We also do, just this last weekend at Rose City Comic-Con, we did a sneak preview of the Lovecraft Film Festival, and I think we're going to start doing that at more conventions we go to. So we're going to sort of try to take that on the road a little bit, see if maybe San Diego Comic-Con and WonderCon down in Anaheim might want to experience a little bit of our madness. So we're going to try to do a little more of that, kind of spread that film sickness, illness, taint. I said the word taint. I said the word taint on stage at the Portland Horror Film Festival, and it was greeted with uproarious laughter.
As it should
start using that word to mean
a body part instead of a condition
or an infection. Okay. I don't know. To go back to something that you said, about the sort of sometimes divided nature of the community, and I think one way I think that we've had some success with that is that we really try to think of this as a family gathering, and to some extent, everybody is welcome, as long as people sort of treat us fairly, and we treat them fairly, and we don't
behave themselves while they're at our.
Yeah, and we understand that we're always going to have people on differing sides of political aisles, whether it's gun control or just general conservatism versus liberalism. But we don't we don't hold that against them when it comes to their Lovecraft scholarship, And we want the Lovecraft Film Festival to be a place where people can sort of openly talk about the thing that excites them, H.P. Lovecraft, and sort of leave their politics behind for the weekend. And it's a decidedly apolitical event. I mean, we really don't have.
I've never had to break up any fistfights.
That's
As
good.
far as I know, none have broken out. So, so that's always a good sign.
Nor any word fights. I think everybody sort of, once they get into the space, they understand it's time for us to have something in common, not to have something to drive us apart.
It's also much easier to be civil in person when you're face to face with the person that you're engaging with, as opposed to online forums where it's very easy to sit behind your computer and lash out at people or not consider your words carefully because you're not seeing their reaction and they're not there in front of you.
And I think that's one of the important things about events like this, as well as Necronomicon, is that it gives an opportunity for the community to be a community. People can really get together and be on the same playing field and cooperate with each other instead of antagonize each other.
Folks who were at the Providence Film Festival were saying that's definitely the feel that they got.
Well, that's nice. That's nice.
Now, I need to ask, I know you're still figuring out kind of what the schedule of things are going to be like. Is this the year we're finally going to get our sweet Ermengarde movie?
I don't know. Lovecraft Under the Gun starts on Thursday, so maybe someone will pull it out.
Yeah.
But in terms of submissions, I haven't seen anything.
We only had 10 adaptations of Sweet Ermengarde submitted this year, but none of them were really up to snuff.
No.
We've never seen an adaptation of that. We did. Well, geez, we can't really talk about films we haven't selected yet, have we?
No. We always talk about the films that we select on our Facebook page and in the event, and of course we list them on the website. So people keep an eye on the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
They'll probably catch a glimpse of some of the films that we can't talk about right now.
And there are a number of adaptations this year that we've not seen adaptations of before. So I think those filmmakers are starting to kind of reach for the stuff that you think, oh, I've never seen that film, or nobody's tried this before. And there's a few really interesting ones that we're looking forward to showing people, but which we haven't announced yet.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you guys so much for coming on this show. If folks are interested in following either the festival or Arkham Bazaar, what are the best places they can follow you?
The best way is to sign up for our newsletters. Go to arkhambazaar.com, and on every single page, there's a space where you can sign up for the newsletter. That way you get it in your inbox. You don't have to rely on Facebook to show it to you. Because I think, 1% of the people who like our page actually see any of that stuff. And the same goes for the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. We have a newsletter. You can sign up for it if you go to hplff.com and then go into the Portland, Oregon portal. There's a menu title called Announcements. And if you click on that, it has the sign up form for our newsletter. And so that you can get informed when there's a new event maybe happening, when tickets go on sale for the Portland event, when the Kickstarter launches,
when we announce
guests in the schedule, and then so you get a few emails between July and October, and then you probably won't hear from us from the rest of the year. but that's really the best way to get our news and stay in touch with us. Of course, we do have a Twitter, which is at HPLFF. We have an Instagram at HPL Film Festival, and the same is for our Facebook at HPL Film Festival. And
those are the
major ways.
Best ways. We always say, Facebook is notoriously bad at actually showing you the content you want to see. So we always encourage people to sign up for our emails. They're relatively non-intrusive. We don't have the time to spam you, 3 times a day. So it's a few times a year you'll hear from us, and it'll be stuff that you want to hear about, like Oh, geez, we didn't talk about our guest of honor this year, did we?
Oh, please do.
So one of the things that we would tell you by email if you were a subscriber was our guest of honor this year is Chiaki J. Konaka, also coming from Japan. Not related to Necronomicon, which is funny. So we have two kind of big Japanese guest things to the festival this year.
This happens every year, though.
The stars align in interesting ways. There's always something like that, right? There's always something, an alignment gets made that we didn't anticipate. And Chiaki Konaka he was the screenwriter for a film called Marabito, which is a wonderful little Lovecraftian feature.
Which is adapted from the novel that he wrote as well.
Yeah. He's one of two of the most renowned Lovecraftian authors in Japan. I think Asamatsu Ken and Chiaki is one of Asamatsu Ken's proteges, I guess, for lack of a better word. But they run in similar circles. They've been in similar collections. And but in addition to writing Marabito, he also directed a TV movie version in Japan of The Shadow over Innsmouth, which we're working on showing. As far as I know, there have never been English subtitles for it. So that's when I say working on, that's what I mean. Is we're working on being able to show it to an English-speaking audience reasonably. But it's a wonderful sort of hour-long version of Shadow over Innsmouth that was made for TV in Japan, and he's primarily responsible for it. He also worked on Ultraman, Ultraman Gaia, where he introduced tons of Lovecraftian mythos concepts. At one point, Ultraman fights a creature, Katanathoa makes an appearance, and the battle takes place in the foreground, while in the background is the island of Rillier. He inserts those sorts of things because when you're a Lovecraftian, you have to. But he's going to be really great. And then Richard Stanley is returning to help us celebrate 125 years of Clark Ashton Smith. Scott Connors will be coming out, and Ron Hilger. And we'll also be showing the world premiere of the new Clark Ashton Smith Emperor of Dreams documentary that a number of those guys are in. It's got interviews with Richard Stanley, Scott, Donald Sidney Fryer, Skinner.
Harlan Ellison.
Harlan Ellison is in it. Yeah.
Who's the filmmaker of the Clark Ashton Smith?
It's Darren Coelho Spring. Is that right?
I'm trying to figure out. Because I actually helped out a Clark Ashton Smith documentary. I'm trying to figure out if there's more than one.
It might have been the same guy.
Oh, yeah, that's him. Okay, so you might be seeing me as well.
He did come to the festival 2 years ago and interviewed people. Like filmed interviews with people, and it's just taken him a long time to, I think, put it all together because it's a lot of work. You have to just however many. It's a long film. It's almost 2 hours, but I can imagine that he probably has like 100 times that in footage that he had to sort through and cut down and choose. And so I think people are going to flip when they see it. It's really interesting. If you don't know anything about Clark Ashton Smith, this is a great way to get to know him. If you do know stuff about Clark Ashton Smith, this is a great way to like dive deeper into what he was about.
And it is a deep dive. It talks about his sculpture and all of his art. Skinner waxes poetic about the sort of outsider artness of Clark Ashton Smith, and that's really a great way to think about him as an artist.
Well, that's really exciting. I'm really excited to see that when that finally emerges from its chrysalis.
Yeah, it sounds to me like people will be able to buy that on DVD like soon after the world premiere happens at the festival.
Fantastic.
Like at the festival.
That's fantastic. Well, it looks like you guys have your work cut out for you. I'll let you get back to wrestling the behemoth that is this Kickstarter. Thank you so much for being on this show, for taking time out from your ridiculous hard work to answer some questions. Thank you to everyone in the chat. If you're interested in this program, this is Ask Lovecraft After Dark, a sister program of Ask Lovecraft, my regular web series. If you'd like to know more about that show, you can go to asklovecraft.com. You can follow these live shows, be part of the live discussions by joining the Facebook group, Ask Lovecraft Appreciation Society. Otherwise, these come out roughly every 2 weeks. We've had a bunch of really fun interviews with folks, a lot of the same folks that I've met at the film festival and Cthulhucon. You can follow Ask Lovecraft on Twitter. You can follow me, Lehman Kessler, at Lehman Kessler. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, everyone, for being part of the show. And Brian and Gwen, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye, all.
Bye.